What's going on, guys? So, it is June 6th, a Sunday morning, and I am going to attempt to do this video on the basics of reading a topography map or a depth map, whatever you want to call it, and how fish relate to that. And this is the very basics. This is just like structure fishing 101, what the bare minimal things you need to understand to start looking at these maps and finding fish on them. And I'm going to try to break this down to a multi-video series because there's so much to talk about, and I would not be able to do it justice by covering it in one 20-minute video. So it's going to have to be broken down, and depending on how well this video does, I'll make some more of them. But this is the most integral part of understanding fish and where to fish, how to find fish, and how to increase your success on the water, whether that's salt or freshwater. Now, primarily the stuff I'm going to be talking about is all going to be related to freshwater, but it is equally applicable in saltwater. But here we go. Here's the basics of structure fishing as coined by Buck Perry. If you don't know who he is, you need to look it up. He's the father of modern fishing. So, here we go. All right, as you can see in the background, we've got this app or this web page called Navionics. Now, Navionics is a company owned by Humminbird that makes depth maps for the United States, and I think it's overseas too. I can't remember if I've looked around on that. So you can download this on your phone or pull it up on your computer. Now, if you're trying to just look at it on your desktop or your laptop or whatever, it's called Navionics Web App. You can just put that in Google, and this thing will pull up right here. Yes, right here. Okay, so, but if you've got a smartphone, most of you guys do, download the Navionics app. I think it's Navionics HD. It's $10 on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. And the most important piece of fishing technology you can buy is this app. And I'm going to go over now how to begin dissecting that. All right, here we go. You guys are going to have to bear with me on this because I've never really done a screen capture in a podcast style video before. But we're going to do it now because I want you guys to see how to begin reading a topography or a lake map and learn the very basics of how fish relate to topography or bottom contours, the structure of the lake, how it's made, the bottom, what it looks like. So here we go. We're on Google right now. So what we're going to do is type in Navionics Web App. There we go. All right. So there's a bunch of different links. You're going to want to click the one with the web app right here. And that's going to bring us up a map of the whole United States and all the lakes within it, or most of them, and the depth maps that we do have of them. So I'm just going to pick one. Let's do a pretty popular lake for big catfish and stripers. Let's do, let's do Wheeler. Let me see if we can find that. All right, here's Wheeler. Wheeler runs east to west, so we've got Gunnersville Dam up here, which pushes current down this way. And that's how this lake is set up. And it kind of widens up when it gets down to the base of it. But up on this upper section, it's more river run. There's not a lot of super crazy defined topography up here, so we're going to look at, I guess, the middle of the lake down here. Let's take a look at this area. This is mid-lake. All right, so what you're going to see on the bottom left-hand corner of this program is a little icon right here. And there's two different things you can click on. The Navionics one, which is nowhere near as defined as sonar chart. So that's what we want to look at. Sonar chart, I believe, is where they actually went out there and scanned this stuff. So, what are we looking at? All right. The first thing we need to understand when we're looking at these maps, or we begin to look at them, is that the home of the fish is deep water. Deep water is relative for the lake or river situation you're in. So in one place, 8 feet can be deep, but in another, 112 feet's deep. It's all relative to where you're at and the conditions you're in. For this lake, I would say 30 to 40 is considered deep. Now, what we're looking at here is called a reservoir. A reservoir is a man-made lake that was formed when they built a dam. So let's see if we can find the dam. All right, here's the dam. Here's Wheeler Dam. So when TVA back in the early I don't know, like not Civil War, gosh, that'd be way long ago, pre-World War II era, they started building these dams. One, to generate power, and two, to give jobs to this area and all across the South during the Great Depression and after it to try to rebuild. So they built these dams that have generators inside them that the water turns and pushes the water out down here and it makes power. That's what they do. But a consequence of that is all this stuff got flooded that used to be farmland, and so now it's a big giant reservoir. Okay, so that's what we're looking at is a reservoir. Now, the next thing we've got to understand, and the most important thing in fishing, again, deep water is the home of the fish. So we're going to go find an area with deeper water, and we can do that by zooming in here. So we can see this area right here is the main river channel, the old Tennessee River. You can see it. And all this stuff on the outside of it was old farmland and homes and stuff like that. So, most of the time, the fish are going to live out here in this main channel and spend most of their time in that area, especially the biggest ones. And what I usually focus on this channel are big catfish and stripers, muskie, stuff like that. So this is incredibly applicable to that. And if you're a bass fisherman, this is the foundation of modern day bass fishing. This is what the big tournament guys are using to catch those giant bags of bass and win hundreds of thousands of dollars. They understand this stuff, and it all comes from Buck Perry. I mean, there's different ways that people say it, but it all is the same language for this. It's structure fishing, topography fishing. So I'm going to keep scrolling here until I find a really good situation to explain. Let's see. Well, some lakes are more defined than others on topography, and it makes them a little bit easier. I mean, if you anchored up anywhere on these areas, you would catch catfish in this main river channel. But we want to find the best of the best. Let's just keep going upstream until I can find something that's really really defined, that will be something that I can use as an example. Okay, there we go. All right, that's really defined. Okay, so home of the fish is deep water. We're just picking out an area that's in the river section of Wheeler Lake. Okay, so man, there's lots of good stuff. All right, we're going to look at this one first. This is just a big giant hole in the river. So you can see everywhere outside of it's 30 to 40 feet, and then there's a defined hole down here in the bottom. The majority of fish in this area, you can see up and down, there's not a whole lot of deep water, are going to spend most of their time in and around here. Now they can move around in these areas to become active, and I can show you how they do that, but this is going to be something good we can look at to understand how to start reading a depth map. Okay, so the black lines on here, all over the place, all represent a decrease in depth. It means it gets deeper right there. You can see that the lines here are super spread far apart, and that means it doesn't get deep really quickly here. It's very, very gradual. But if we look in this area, you can see that these lines are super, super, super close together, which means that it drops off really quickly here. And that's good. That's called a ledge. All right? So, when you're fishing or when I'm breaking down a spot, I like to find a good deep water area based on the river or lake or whatever I'm fishing, and then I want to find something that leads out to this deep water as a highway. So fish, when they become active, they can move shallower to feed. And the roadmap they use as a direction to become active is the bottom of the lake, or the contours of it, the depth and the structure within it. So when I'm looking at a lake I've never fished before, again, you start out, find the deep water, and then we're going to look at the contours next to that deep water. We want to find something that's super defined that leads straight out to that deep water. And the most defined portion of that break line, which is this right here, this is a break line, or a break. This is a big drop off. The most defined portion of it that leads to the deepest area of it is generally where those fish are going to become active and start to move up. So when I'm looking at this area right here, it's going to be this area of the break line right here. I think these fish are going to be sitting in this hole the majority of the time, and when they become active, they're going to use this area to come up. Now, how far they come up, they could move all the way up here, is dependent on how active they are, and that's a story for another video. But this area right in here is what you're looking for. This is the most defined bottom contour in this area that leads to that deep water. And you can see where they get really close right here together. That's a little point that kind of runs out underneath the water. And you would never see that if you're just looking at the bank. This is all under the water down deep. So now that we have kind of a basic understanding of how to look at one of these things and how to access this program, we can go explore and find tons of new spots to fish. If I was fishing right here, I would probably anchor my boat right here and then cast back down in this area in here if there's current. If there's no current, you can drift around in here or troll or drag or whatever, but I would just cover this whole area. One thing you can do first to see if they're active is come up here and drag on this flat or drift. If you don't get anything up there, just start moving your way down deep, because if you find them up shallow, they're going to be active. So that's where you can start out first, but generally I'm after the bigger fish. And when you're looking at this stuff, another thing to keep in mind is smaller fish get active more often than big fish, and they go shallower more often. So if you're picking up a lot of really small fish at a certain depth, you can try moving deeper. That's what I usually do. So now you guys kind of have, depending on your experience level and what you've done research-wise into this kind of stuff, just a bit of a basic understanding on what lake topography is. Topography, again, bottom contours of the lake, what that lake looks like on the bottom, the design of it. Different types of lakes are set up differently. I'm trying to pick out areas that are very defined so you just begin to understand how these things look and how they were made and how they function. I'm just going to go to another lake or reservoir here on the Tennessee River chain. And again, I picked the Tennessee River because that's just what I fish, but I fished all over the place, Virginia, stuff like that. And what I use to pick out fishing areas on the Tennessee River, I would use everywhere else. Even up in Kentucky, you saw the hybrid fishing video. I used bottom contours and time of the year based on spawning patterns to find where the fish are. So we're just going to go, we'll do something near Knoxville where I live. I've got an idea of a good area that we can look at. So this is Fort Loudon Lake. Let's move around here. Oh no, we're at Watts Bar. Let's go. We're up at the upper end. Let's go down here. All right. So here's Fort Loudon Lake. Okay. One thing I want you guys to look at now, or begin to understand now, are points. And now points or bars are long extended fingers that reach out from the shoreline all the way out to deep water. And now they are not all one and the same, and some are way better than others. What makes one better than the other is how far it reaches out and how deep of water it goes to. So here's an example of a big shallow backwater bay area. Now during the springtime, bass, catfish, and stuff like that will use these areas to come back and spawn. It's good shallow water, and they have cover, stuff like that. Now here we see the main river channel that cuts right here. And now I want you to come over here and look at the bank area. You can see these points. Now these you can see from the bank, but just looking at them, you would have no idea how far they extend out. From right here to right here is like 4 football fields long. And it's 6 feet all the way out here. This one is especially defined. You can see how narrow it is, which cuts down the area that fish are going to use to move up and become active. Those are the best ones, are long and narrow, really defined points or bars that lead all the way out to the deep water. So here's this main river channel right here, and in this area right here is where this bar that's almost a quarter mile away reaches all the way out to. So when these fish become active, especially the catfish, they're going to use this depth break line right here, and then they run into this. And so now they've found their highway to move active. And they will move all the way up on top of this bar to feed and move back down. If you're looking for areas to fish and you've got a boat, these are great. Position yourself out here on the super deep water and you will run into some fish. Let's see if we can find some even deeper stuff that's more defined. We'll pick just another random lake again. I'm just scrolling all over the place. Here's Chickamauga. All right, so here's where what looks like 2 big giant rivers come together. This is the Hiwassee and the Tennessee. Now, when 2 rivers come together, that area where they merge is usually great fishing because they've got all those different types of nutrients and stuff that all mix together and are in one area. And it looks like there's a big island out here. I've never fished this area. I'm just going to look at it. So we can see this super defined river channel right here. And then look at that. Look, somebody's already marked the bottom of the island. So this is a big island, a wildlife refuge out here, it looks like. And this shallow area right here goes all the way out until it hits this main river channel. Boom. And that's where both of them converge. Boom. There's a little point right here, a big giant one. And somebody's already marked it. Yep. See, if you weren't able to understand or look at these maps, you would never know this is here. Now, most people start out fishing and they're casting at the bank. But the fish are only on the bank a very small percentage of the time. So we've got to understand how to find them out deep and then follow their migratory patterns up shallow when they become active. This right here is a crazy good area to fish, it looks like. You've got some underwater road beds, which is good cover, and you've got good structure, which is the bottom contour of the lake. This is primo for bass and everything else. I may actually go down and fish this now that I look at it, but tons of different stuff. So there's a really good area to fish, stuff like that. Look for things like this. Now, if you're fishing from the bank, you've got to find areas that you can get to the bank and fish from and hit that deep water, which is harder than a boat. You've got more work you've got to put in. And I've been there. I've done it, and it's super difficult. I'll even show you one of the best shore fishing spots I found when I was in college that required a ton of work to get down to. We'll go back up to Watts Bar. There's Rome County. That's where the clinch dumps in. Okay. So here's a public park right here. This is public land. You can do whatever you want to on it. There's walking trails, stuff like that. Here's some really good deep water all the way around it. This is where 2 rivers come in. And here's a big point that runs all the way out to it to the deep water. From here to here is 6 football fields. So you got to be able to cast a mile. Now, when I'm looking for shore spots, I need to find somewhere where I don't have to cast crazy far, but I can still hit deep water. And that's on this side right here, especially when the water's up. From right here, this portion of the bank, especially down in here, you can hit 50 feet of water, the main river channel break line, with not a super far cast. That's what you're looking for when you're shore fishing. You want to find this deep water access that you can cast to if you're catfishing or striper fishing, and even bass fishing. The bass will use this bank too, but I don't do that. So what I'm focusing on here is catfish and stripers. this is an area where you can get your baits out to more easily. Now, bass stack up all along this. I've caught them trolling, big stripers, everything, all in this area. But if you're shore fishing, you got to find areas like this that you can cast to. Or even, we'll go all the way upstream. Here's a boat launch right here. This is public area all right here. If you can cast a football field or 80, 90 yards, you can hit this main break line. Another good area to fish. And you know, I'm real with you guys. If you are bank fishing, be prepared to put your bucket time in and have some fishless days learning how to do this stuff. It's just a part of it. But if you begin to learn how to do these depths and break lines, you're going to catch so many big fish once you start going that you'll be amazed. And you'll be able to take your family to do it too. Now, this was just a basic introduction to begin learning how to read these lake maps and how fish relate to them. If you want to see more of this, and this has helped you find some places to fish or given you at least a beginning understanding of fish and their behavior, we'll make some more of these videos. Now, fish and how they relate to these breaks and break lines have certain determining factors on how they do it depending on the time of year. Now, those factors are weather, water, and time of year conditions. So one end of the lake during a certain time of the year is going to be better than the other end. Like in the spring, the rivers are usually on fire with stripers and catfish and stuff like that because a lot of fish move upstream to spawn. And then once you get into the dog days of summer, you're going to start moving your way back down the lake into the deeper mid-lake stuff. So, again, this is just your basic introduction to structure fishing. And a lot of you guys have requested this video, and here it is. Now, I know that was a lot to take in. It has taken me years to begin understanding this stuff, so don't feel overwhelmed with it. There's tons of resources online to begin learning about this stuff. And what I would suggest doing is look up Buck Perry and the videos associated with him. He's the creator of modern day fishing. All the ideas behind structure fishing, the techniques and stuff like that are all stuff that he created like 80 years ago or 60 years ago that are just now coming to light as the internet gets out there. Back when he first started doing this stuff, he had a bandwidth issue. Now, bandwidth is the amount of information you can fit in a certain thing. So back in his time, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't YouTube, there were magazines and TV and stuff like that. But even then, a lot of people didn't have access to it. So the tenets of fishing, the science behind it, was hard for him to disseminate. Now we've got all this stuff and the smartphone when I'm filming on here that just makes it easier to begin understanding this stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed this first lesson on structure fishing and how to read a depth map. And if you liked it, leave a comment in the section below saying what you liked about it, what questions you have, and share with your friends and family. Again, Top Knox Fishing, we're about sharing the good times with you and teaching you how to catch fish. I want it to be both because that's important to me. Hit that like and subscribe button and we'll catch you next time.